very grateful to see you here.
Hello,
Well,
guys.
Eugenia, I'm very sorry for the image. You won't be properly able to see all of us because I need to have the laptop just right in the middle so we can see you. So, if I may ask you if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, sure. I do see you in a slight fog, but this makes it even more interesting. Anyway, greetings from Ukraine. Hope you had a good night yesterday. If you watched Eurovision, it's a big thing in my country. And I'm really happy to share with you my experience, even though the circumstances under which I have started my YouTube channel are not good, because I have started my regular vlogging together with the start of Russian full-scale invasion of my country, Ukraine. My name is Anna. I have an academic career and also run an NGO that works in the sphere of cultural heritage preservation and promotion. But I was also writing for a daily Ukrainian newspaper, and I have never considered vlogging to be something really important, more about food, clothes, sharing your travel experiences, and other stuff. But when full-scale invasion started, same as many Ukrainians, I did not believe such a thing to this extent of brutality and violence is possible in the 21st century in the center of Europe. And we were all going through a very unusual period for a human being, getting used to this new reality. And at the same time, I was observing global media, the CNN, BBC, The Guardian, New York Times, where you need people's attention. And I've noticed that the majority of the materials, they are dedicated to statistics, number of weapons, number of casualties, not showing the real face of the people who stand against this violence. And there were many beautiful things happening in daily life of really heroic Ukrainians who were fought against these invaders. And I remember stories like about a woman who was standing on her balcony and saw a Russian drone flying nearby, and she dropped a bottle of tomatoes, a jar of tomatoes that she made for winter, and destroyed that drone. Or brave Ukrainian old ladies who were stopping, literally, physically stopping Russian tanks and asking Russian soldiers to put seeds of sunflowers in their pockets, so that after we neutralize them and they get buried, at least some good thing will come out of them. And these were examples of extremely resilient, brave, sometimes with humor, sometimes with great sadness, but real life stories. And I felt like the world, YouTube, other social media, they greatly lack this real, subjective, emotional perspective of a citizen that goes through an extremely challenging period in their life. And unfortunately, there are not many English speaking Ukrainian. I don't like this word social influencers, but people do use it quite often. So when I started my vlog, I had like 47 subscribers because I was not using it for uploading videos. I was using it, I don't know, for what's in my bag videos to watch others. And after I've recorded my very first vlog, with which perhaps was more therapeutic for me than for anyone in this world. It was on the day when, in my semi-safe city, because I'm located in Western Ukraine, which is far away from Russian border, we do have and feel war here, but we are not under constant shellings. But on that day, a missile came to our airfield, killing 2 people, and this is what considered safe in Ukraine. And I decided to share this experience, and I was surprised that I've received like 300 views, and that was big for me. And I felt a responsibility, and somehow I started coming out with my daily updates from an ordinary Ukrainian perspective, telling the things that we discuss in homes, on the streets, at work. And the audience grew really quickly. And now I have almost 140,000 subscribers, which is really um, fast for this period without like any advertisement, because that's not my cup of tea and that's not the mission of my video. Um, and I'm super grateful to all these beautiful people from literally different corners of the world who, in their safe environments, choose to get updates from my country. But as this war continues and we realize that more and more threats are imposed by Russian regime on Europe and the world in general, I'm happy to see that the audience is growing, and the audience is growing in a conscious way. They try to learn from our Ukrainian experience. They, same as me, don't want to believe something similar is possible in their countries. But once again, I did not believe it is possible in mine. I did not have war experience. I could not imagine myself reporting about war like 3 years ago. I was just like you or your friends or someone else. I hated military design. I did not like films about war. It's not mine. But unfortunately, you don't have to choose, especially if you have a neighbor like Russia. So as my channel grew my skills, my subscribers taught me a lot, and during all the last year, I have participated together with a team of other YouTubers, people from Instagram, Twitter, in Aspen Berlin project, which tried to analyze the role of social influencers in times of war and crisis and conflict, and how we can help fight disinformation, fake news, because there are lots of them, and also how social media platforms help or prevent us from doing that. Because very often, when you share a Ukrainian made photo or video with some unfortunately violent content, it will get blurred. And I do understand it's the purpose of social media to protect you from some violent images. But just for a second, imagine how a person for whom it is a reality, a Ukrainian, feels when my reality is blurred as a photo for you. So I can remain and live it, and I cannot even show it to the world because it may cause some distress. Well, it causes lots of distress here inside of Ukraine, and we do have to be prepared to see the truth. Working with Aspen Berlin, working on the recommendation for EU Commission on information about this cooperation between social media platforms, social influencers, politicians, and other stuff, it's actually quite difficult because everything is very vague. But I have found out that, there was a boom of fact checking various NGOs, organizations. And for example, German ones reported that approximately in times of COVID pandemics, more and more people started reporting they don't want facts. They simply close themselves from the reality because they don't feel comfortable with it. I totally understand that to some extent, but unfortunately, it does not work like that in real life. Hiding yourself from some bad news, you cannot hide from the consequences. And that's why with each day, with each month, I feel more and more responsibility, and I try to inspire people around me to be active in a way they can. And despite all the problems that social media brought into our life, it definitely brought a fantastic instrument to speak. You don't need to be connected with a TV channel or to work years for a newspaper to be able to share your story. And unfortunately, it will be very interesting for me to hear your questions and your experiences. But unfortunately, coming from this world that was greatly destroyed by Russian myths. And I remember one of the very first advice that I've received on the channel when I started sharing Ukrainian culture, language, history, one of the subscribers who told me, well, Anna, keep it simple because for many, your country was just a of Russia for all this time. And unfortunately, many still believe this about other Central Eastern European countries, and these stereotypes are built in generations of people. And apart from warning on the dangers of Russian propaganda, informational warfare, it's also important to debunk this seemingly soft but still extremely persuasive beliefs that circulate the world, who at the beginning wanted to look at this as just like, I don't know, a local conflict or something happening inside and so on. So it's extremely important. And if you are interested in any, I don't know, aspects of my blogging, any from the technical part up to the content part, I will be happy to answer these questions. And once again, I advise you, I ask you if there is something you want to say, do use this opportunity because there is no enough voices that are trying to debunk this myth and tell the real story of our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much. Right now, I'd like to ask you guys about your questions because you have the opportunity to ask Anna, who's with us. Who would like to do first? Kostas. Okay, so I will just softly turn the laptop. We have Kostas and
I'm
Eugenia.
feeling dizzy. Hello, Costas.
Hello. First of all, I would like to ask, what are you teaching? Because if I remember correctly, you're a professor, right? At the
Yeah.
university. What are you
Mhm.
teaching, and how did your work in the university change before and after the war?
Thank you. That's a good question. I'm a PhD in linguistics and I teach linguistics related subjects. And I have to be honest, I also had a course on political linguistics. And I remember speaking about propaganda on the awful examples of Nazi regime. I greatly advise you The Language of the Third Reich by Victor Klemperer, if you haven't read. And many different observations that people make and how language changes when something bad is approaching. And later on, something similar happened in Russian media, but somehow human mind wants not to notice that. So how does my and my students' life changed? It changed a lot. Once again, I live in the western part of Ukraine, really close to EU border, but also close to Belarus border. And we don't have active battles on the streets, and we are rarely shelled, but we have a lot of people conscripted to war. And of course, we have curfew, we have all these changes in our life. Universities, war is very dynamic and everything changes very quickly. I'd say during the first months, many people fled Ukraine and stayed in Poland, in Czech Republic, in Hungary, in the US, wherever. And it was extremely important to preserve the educational process, you know, because for a country to remain real, to remain legitimate, it's extremely important for its schools, hospitals, shops, cafes, museums to continue working wherever it is possible. So COVID experience provided us with these skills, and actually many students and even many teachers continued working online, being in literally different parts of Ukraine or different parts of the world in general. Then, after a couple of months, many people actually returned back to Ukraine, realizing the situation in their regions, and once again coming, for example, to safer parts of the country. But we had blackouts. And blackouts, electricity shortages, when you literally, there were days when we did not have electricity like for 3, 4 days. Once again, depending on what region you are, the closer to Russian border, the more problems you have. But it was everywhere, and it was during winter, so it was not just dark; it was also cold. And then you realize how many things actually depend on electricity, starting with water, because you need water for water pumps to work and bring water in your houses. Electricity is needed. Then mobile operators, they need electricity for connection towers and other stuff. And there were periods when no educational process was possible, and we studied in something that is known as asynchronic mode. So not only it was online, but it was just like giving a task and receiving this task. Because, for example, in my district, we could have no electricity from, I don't know, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., and in my students' district, there would be something different. Um, so it was, but at the same time, what is surprising that during such obstacles, during such challenging times, students tremendously want to study. They want to communicate. They want to get their tasks because they want their normal life back. This is what you start valuing when you lose it. And of course, air raid alerts. We cannot continue an educational process during an air raid alert. We have bomb shelters in all the educational establishments, and school children sometimes even like it. But no matter, like, Ukrainians have mobile applications which provide you with information. What kind of danger is that? And practically, we often know that when it's a MiG aircraft, it's not very likely it will shell, but still the air raid alert is on, and it may continue for hours. So from one point of view, it does not bring bombs, but it freezes the life. It freezes the work of banks, post offices, schools, and universities, and it's all quite problematic. But I'm really glad that this educational process continued. So we have adapted. Once again, in my region, in Kyiv, in Lviv, that's less possible to continue. But at the same time, we do have to be very careful because just last week, a Russian missile destroyed a university in Odessa, killing a number of university professors, including a vice director.
Martin from Spain.
Hello, I have two questions for you. First of all, which is your opinion about Ukrainian government selling the Ukrainian land to American corporations in exchange for weapons and help in the diplomacy relationships?
That is, during martial law in Ukraine, you cannot buy real estate to some extent, and the same goes for the selling of land to foreigners. We don't sell Ukrainian land to foreigners. This is one of the messages of Russian propaganda, trying to demonstrate that Ukraine does not govern itself. In reality, there are big companies and small farmers in Ukraine, but all of them are owned by Ukrainians. The law on the ability to sell land was under really long period of analysis in the Ukrainian Verkhovna Rada. It was accepted, but at the moment, no selling of land to any foreigner, be it a Pole, a person from Spain, or a person from the US, is possible.
Greens. Did you ever heard, or as you are more knowledgeable about this issue, have you ever heard about those instances where a Russian Federation went as far as, for example, bribing, let's say, some YouTubers, Ukrainians, who would share disinformation?
Well, I wouldn't say that there is a huge tendency. Well, first of all, because YouTubers, they are not that influential. We don't have to overestimate that. Unfortunately, Russian and pro-Russian forces, they finance different politicians and political parties in Europe, in North America, and they are known for that. And it's quite obvious that, for example, everyone knew that Nord Stream 2, if it is built. This will mean the start of war by Russia on Ukraine because they will start destroying the infrastructure. And somehow people believed that it will be possible to distract Russia with some economic attention or something else. No, it did not work out. So honestly, I'm more afraid of these things. Of course, Russia is super professional in fakes. It has some very primitive fakes oriented for Ruski Mir lovers, but it has some eloquent and exquisitely designed for the European media market, where they may not mention Ukraine at all, but they will try to focus on your internal problems and make you over concerned about something minor instead of seeing a huge danger to democracy in general. And actually, it's very bad that more and more often Russia uses our democracy to work against this democracy. Because one of the greatest troubles that and mistakes that people make when they want to equate Russian people and Ukrainian people, giving them similar space to speak and trying to support them in a similar way. You cannot equate a victim to an aggressor. It is my country that been torn. They are crossing our borders. That were agreed on international agreements. They are killing and our people, destroying our infrastructures, not us. It was all because of Russian invasion. And all of these problems, all of the troubles globally, not because something is happening in Ukraine. Nothing was happening in Ukraine until Russian troops came here. So it's extremely important to first finish this war, to punish the responsible for this war, and only then start discussing, equating, and hearing different parties. At the moment, it's just like equating a victim of a murder with a murderer and trying to hear their sides of the story.
Would really like to thank you, Anna, for your time.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much. By the way, guys, I'll put the link for the channel as well as for the documentary and other documents Anna was working about to our Facebook group. So don't forget
Yeah,
to
as a normal YouTuber, I should say share and subscribe.
subscribe, please. Share and subscribe. So, thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much for
much. Have
coming.
a good and productive day.
You too, you too. Thank you, thank you. Дуже дякуємо ще раз.
Дякую. Bye bye.